First of all, we need to make todo controller link accessible for logged in customer only. So go ahead and open the index control from index directory. Then we need to replace action interface with the account interface. So now implement Magento, customer, controller, and account interface. The account interface takes care of customer authentication and redirection on failure. So let's check if it really works. Open to-do page. Now we see login page showed up instead. So go ahead and enter credentials. This time the to-do page appeared. Let us double check this in incognito mode. It works as I expected and we see the login page appeared. The to-do entity table includes entity ID, title, description, customer ID, start date, end date, created at and updated at. While to-do task entity has fields, entity ID, title, status, which can be 0 or 1. Then parent ID, created at and updated at fields. Parent ID is a reference column to the to-do entity ID column. Customer ID from to-do entity is the reference column to the customer entity ID column. To add these tables to database, we need to configure declarative schema first. So go ahead and create db_schema.xml file under etc directory. Create schema node. The schema location file defines a table creation XML, indexes, and constraints. First, go ahead and create table node. Set the table name todo_entity. Then create resource attribute. It's the database fragment on which to install the table. This value must be default, checkout, or sales. So here we will choose default. And the engine is InnoDB. Specify table comments if apply. The table node can contain 3 types of subnodes: column, constraint, and index. Now let's begin adding columns. First specify column name, entity_ID. Use XSI type to specify the column type. Unsigned attribute is used for numeric data types only. And specifies whether the column can contain positive and negative values. Nullable attribute indicates whether the column can be nullable. Identity attribute indicates whether a column is an auto increment. And optionally specify the comment attribute. Next, create title column and specify the attributes respectively. Add length attribute to specify the length of a column. Next, create description column. Then add customer_ID column. This will be used as foreign key. So specify exactly same attributes as the customer entity table. Create started column. On update triggers timestamp update if set to true. Set current timestamp as default value. Similarly, create ended column. Now add created at column. And then create updated at column. Now we will specify primary key using constraint subnode. The type attribute should be primary. Then we set the custom identifier for relation mapping. Then specify the primary column, entity_ID. Next, create foreign key constraint. In type, specify foreign. The reference ID can be meaningful. Specify a current table name inside the table attribute. And then specify the column name customer_ID. Specify the reference table customer_entity. Then reference column entity_ID. And cascade on delete. Specify proper closing tag. Now create to-do task entity table. The first column is going to be entity_ID. The next column name is status. The type of column is small int. Then add column with name parent_ID, which will be associated with the to-do entity. And finally add created and updated date columns. Now is the time to add constraints. First add primary key constraint. Specify entity_ID in reference ID attribute. And then specify the column name entity_ID. Next, create foreign key constraint. Then specify a reference ID. Make the reference ID meaningful. The reference ID we are creating contains table short name, current column name, reference table short name, and the reference column short name. Specify current table name and then column name. Specify reference table name for reference table attribute. And finally, reference column name. We have missed the title column. Let's go ahead and create that. Column type is worker. Specify column length 250. Run setup upgrade command to install the schema. Let's verify the tables. Tables have been created successfully. To-do entity table looks good. Now let's take a look at to-do task entity table. All of the columns have been created successfully.